I whispered to myself in shock. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't unlock the door. It had been a long and exhausting day at work, and all I wanted was to go inside and rest. But instead, I found my personal belongings thrown carelessly in front of the entrance, as if they were garbage. I looked at the door and noticed something was different. It looked like it had been changed. No matter how hard I tried, the key wouldn't turn. It was as if the door was refusing to let me in. This was the last straw. I had been through so much over the years while living with my in-laws. Every day had been a struggle, and this moment made it clear. I could not stay there any longer. I made up my mind. I would not step foot in that house again. I gathered my things, packed them into my car, and decided to go back to my parents' home. It felt like the only place I could truly find peace. Months passed, and I tried to move on with my life. Then, out of the blue, I received a message from my in-laws. It was unexpected, and for a moment, I wasn't sure how to feel. The connection between us had seemed broken, yet here they were, reaching out. Let me introduce myself. My name is Olivia, and I am 36 years old. My husband, Henry, is 6 years younger than me. I have always been dedicated to my career. In fact, before I got married, I never thought much about relationships. I had never been on many dates and didn't feel the need to settle down. Marriage wasn't something I had planned for myself. But Henry was different. He worked under me at my job and was persistent in his pursuit. He made it clear that he wanted to be with me and promised that I wouldn't have to give up my career after marriage. He said he would take care of the household chores so I could continue working. His commitment and support made me reconsider my thoughts on marriage. I realized that while I was unsure about getting married, the idea of having children had crossed my mind from time to time. As I neared 36, I knew that if I ever wanted to start a family, I was running out of time. So, I made my decision. I married Henry. At first, things were great. It was just the two of us, and Henry kept his word. He supported me in my career and handled most of the household responsibilities. I appreciated his efforts, and life seemed smooth. But then, everything changed. About 7 months into our marriage, tragedy struck. Henry's father passed away suddenly. He had always been a healthy man, so his death was a complete shock to everyone. My mother-in-law and Henry's younger sister, Helen, were devastated. They said they couldn't manage on their own and needed our support. Helen, who is 34, works as a freelancer. She earns a decent income, but she spends a lot of her time and money on her hobbies. Because of this, she isn't financially stable. My mother-in-law also struggled to cope with the loss. They both expected us to step in and help them. That's when everything in our lives started to change. I always thought Helen should find a full-time job. Whenever she and my mother-in-law came to talk to me, Henry would bring up the idea of all of us living together. Olivia, have you thought about moving in with my mom and sister? You can keep freelancing as usual, and having them around would make house chores easier. What do you think? Henry asked me one day. I hesitated before answering. I'm fine with keeping my work schedule, but I don't know about taking on more chores. If your mom moves in and we're helping her, shouldn't she be responsible for most of the housework? Henry nodded. Fair point. I'll talk to my mom and Helen about it. Please think about it, and we'll wait for their response. I had my own life and financial matters to consider, so I made sure to tell Henry that I wanted everything carefully planned. It might have seemed cold, but I knew that caregiving required proper preparation. In the end, Henry assured me that his family would handle all the housework. I even thought about asking for a written agreement, but decided against it. Since they were family, I chose to trust them, and we moved into Henry's family home. On our first day there, I went to greet my mother-in-law. I'm looking forward to living together. As Henry mentioned, I'll continue working as usual, so I hope you and Helen can manage the house chores, I said politely. She didn't even look at me before replying. Why did Henry marry someone like her? She works, so all the chores will fall on me? Is that what a wife should be? A wife is supposed to handle both work and household duties, isn't she? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She wanted to do everything herself, but also seemed to blame me for it. Her words were loud and clear, and then she just walked away. This wasn't what I had expected at all. I stood there, feeling uneasy about our future in that house. Later, as we unpacked our belongings in silence, Helen suddenly appeared at the doorway. She looked at me with disapproval and said, "I ended up with a less than adorable sister-in-law. Poor Henry." With that, she left just as quickly as she had come. First, my mother-in-law had made me feel unwelcome, and now Helen was doing the same. I could already tell that living here was going to be much harder than I had imagined. I couldn't understand why they wanted to live with me after speaking so badly about me. Later, I realized it was all about my money. Soon after moving in together, I noticed something troubling. On our first day under the same roof, despite their sarcastic remarks before, my mother-in-law and Helen completely ignored me. They only prepared meals when my husband was home, but never offered to help with cleaning or laundry for me. I tried to bring up their broken promises several times, but whenever I politely addressed my mother-in-law as ma'am, she would glare at me and walk away, making it clear she didn't want to talk. Helen didn't ignore me as openly, but I still felt like I couldn't speak up against either of them. Over time, doing my own laundry and cleaning up after work became my daily routine. I wanted to tell my husband about how they were treating me, but I hesitated because I felt sorry for him. However, things got even worse when they started having financial troubles. They began pressuring me for money, though they avoided asking directly. Instead, they left notes under my food. Just today, I found a note from my mother-in-law. "We're struggling this month. Could you lend us $500? I thought about discussing it with my husband, but he was also short on cash because of his social life and drinking habits. He often asked, "Can we cut down on expenses this month?" When he was my subordinate at work, I had always made sure he didn't overspend on unnecessary parties. But after switching departments post-marriage, he found it hard to refuse invitations, and these costs kept adding up. It was difficult for me to bring up my in-laws' financial demands with him. So, reluctantly, I gave in and treated the money as a loan. This pattern continued for 3 years. My husband became more and more comfortable not contributing to household expenses. Instead, he kept telling me to cut back on spending every month as if it was my responsibility alone. I found myself stuck in this cycle, constantly handing over money while my in-laws found new ways to ask for more. I felt trapped. It was like an endless scheme, yet I continued to play along. But there was something else I was still doing. I'll explain that soon. One day, when I returned home from work, I found something shocking. Many of my personal belongings were scattered outside the house. I walked closer, trying to make sense of what had happened. I realized that the scattered belongings were mine. My heart pounded with anger. How could they treat my things so carelessly? Furious, I marched up to the front door and tried to unlock it, only to find that my key no longer worked. They changed the locks while I was gone. I muttered in disbelief. "I can't take this anymore." As I stood there, overwhelmed with frustration, my eyes fell on a piece of paper placed beneath my belongings. I picked it up and read the cruel message. "Don't ever come back. We don't want to see your face. Consider yourself lucky we didn't throw away your stuff." I clenched my fists. My mother-in-law and Helen were obviously behind this. I wondered if Henry had played a part in it, or if he had simply stood by and let it happen. Either way, it didn't matter anymore. The damage was done. Luckily, I had my car keys. Without wasting time, I gathered as much of my stuff as I could, packed it into the car, and drove straight to my parents' house. A wave of relief washed over me, knowing that at least my belongings were safe. No matter what happened next, my work wouldn't be affected. When I arrived at my parents' home, they were shocked to see me with all my things. But their reaction quickly turned into warm concern as they welcomed me back. It had been 3 years since I had spent any real time here. Sitting at the dining table with a cup of tea my mother had brewed, I finally felt a sense of comfort that I had long forgotten. My father looked at me seriously. "Why did you bring all your belongings here? Did you leave their house? Marriage requires patience, Olivia." His words made me think about everything I had endured. For 3 years, my interactions with my mother-in-law and Helen had been minimal, except for the constant notes demanding money. Henry had become completely dependent on my income, treating me like an ATM rather than a partner. I had tolerated everything until now. When I explained everything to my parents, they listened with empathy. My mother sighed, "Olivia, you've been patient enough. We won't ask you to suffer any longer. Now that they've driven you away, there's no reason to go back." "Maybe you should think about sending Henry divorce papers," my father added. "He seemed like a decent man when you married him, but money changes people." It's unfortunate. Hearing their support brought unexpected tears to my eyes. For the first time in years, I felt truly understood. "Has it been that hard on you?" my father asked gently. I wiped my eyes and smiled. "No, it's just, I haven't felt this level of kindness in a long time. It's comforting." I took a deep breath and nodded. "You're right, Dad. I'll send Henry the divorce papers. But I want to watch the situation for a little while. I have a feeling something interesting is going to happen soon." I had a feeling that something was about to happen soon, and surprisingly, it did, just 4 months later. By then, I had moved out of my parents' home and settled into a new apartment of my own. For the first time in a long while, I had full control over my earnings and could spend my money however I pleased. I hired a housekeeping service to take care of the chores, which allowed me to truly enjoy my free time. I treated myself to shopping trips, small vacations, and things I had long wanted but never felt free to buy. Every day, I appreciated the value of my hard-earned money even more. Looking back, I couldn't understand why I had endured those 2 miserable years. It dawned on me that maybe I had been manipulated by my in-laws, tricked into sacrificing my own happiness for their benefit. Then, exactly 4 months after they threw me out and changed the locks, my phone buzzed unexpectedly. At first, I ignored the call, but then it rang again, and again, a 5th time in quick succession. Something must be wrong, I thought. I picked up the next call, and before I could even say a word, another call came through. "Olivia, where are you? I went to your parents' house, but they wouldn't tell me anything. I also tried your workplace, but they wouldn't tell me either." It was my mother-in-law. This was someone who had ignored me for 3 years, yet now she was calling me in a panic. Her voice sounded hesitant, even nervous. I remained silent, waiting to see what she would say next. "Hello? Are you still there? Please come back soon and restore our lives. We can't even afford to go out and enjoy ourselves anymore. What are we supposed to do now?" I almost laughed. She was more worried about her leisure time than the fact that they had kicked me out. I thought cutting back on spending would be enough, but clearly it's not. Our phone and electricity are about to be cut off. We're at our wits' end. Please come back immediately. Did she really not see the irony? Shouldn't she start by apologizing for throwing me out? I waited, but no apology came. "Olivia, are you listening? Don't you care that we're struggling?" she added, sounding frustrated. Realizing she had no sense of remorse, I ended the call without a word. The next day, my phone rang again. This time it was Helen. "Olivia, why did you ignore Mom's call yesterday? We're in trouble, and you didn't even try to help." She couldn't even tell if you were listening. Ignoring calls like that is really immature, you know. I sighed. Of course, Helen would call to scold me. For 3 years, they had ignored me, treated me like an outsider, and only spoke to me when they wanted money. And now, suddenly, I was the one in the wrong. I couldn't believe her nerve. I thought about staying on the call a little longer, but without an apology, I had no reason to respond. I heard from Mom that we're having financial troubles at home. Our phone and electricity might be cut off soon. Without air conditioning in this heat, we could suffer from heat stroke. Can you live with that? If our phone gets disconnected, how will we reach you? So please come back and help us pay the overdue bills. Her selfish demands made it easy for me to ignore her. Hey, are you listening? You haven't said a word. Oh, are you still upset about what happened 4 months ago? That was just a joke. You're overreacting. As an adult, you should know the difference between a joke and something serious. Stop being stubborn and come back home. They had thrown out my belongings like trash and changed the locks, so I couldn't get in. That was a clear message for me not to return. Now, they were trying to convince me that it was just a joke? How could I believe that when Helen didn't even bother apologizing? I decided to end the call. There was no point in wasting more time listening to her nonsense. The next day, I received a call from my husband. "Hello, Olivia.
I'm sorry.
My mother, my sister, and we all realize we've done terrible things. Can you come back? Our household is falling apart. We're out of money. Everyone is on edge, and tensions are high. We sincerely apologize and want you back. Please." At least my husband understood the need to apologize, but it was far too late. Why had he ignored me for 4 months? If he had reached out within the first few days, I might have considered coming back. But 4 months had passed. In that time, I had built a new life, and I was finally enjoying my independence. There was no reason for me to go back to that toxic household now. "I appreciate your apology, Henry, but after everything that's happened, I have no intention of coming back." I paused before asking, "Henry, why were you unreachable for 4 months? How could you do that as a husband?" I decided to do some investigating, and guess what? I found out the truth. "You've been cheating, haven't you?" That's exactly what the detective agency confirmed. "For 3 years, you treated me like an ATM, using my money while hiding your lies." Well, I'm done. I'll be sending you the divorce papers soon, so be ready to handle them properly. Maybe my husband thought he would never get caught. What a fool. And yet, he still had the audacity to say, "I want you to come back." I smirked and replied, "If you pay me back for all the living expenses I covered for the 3 of us over the past 3 years and return the money I lent you, maybe I'll consider it." Let's see, that comes to about $180,000.
Can you manage that?
I knew very well he couldn't afford it, but I wanted to make it clear that I was serious. After a moment of silence, he suddenly hung up the phone. Maybe he finally realized that I was truly done with him. A few days later, I sent him the divorce papers along with a bill for emotional distress. His response was immediate. Without argument, he signed the divorce papers and sent them back. Now, all I had left to do was file them at the city office, and the divorce would be official. As for the compensation, he transferred the money right away. Of course, I had made sure to include a note with the bill, warning him that if he didn't pay up, I would expose his infidelity to his company. Clearly afraid of the consequences, he must have rushed to take out a loan to cover the cost. From what I've heard, their family home is now on the market. It seems they are struggling financially and are desperate to raise funds. However, selling their house in a hurry means they will now have to find a place to rent. Considering how much rent and utilities cost, I doubt they made a smart choice. They probably panicked and didn't think about the long-term consequences. But honestly, their problems are none of my concern anymore. As for me, I'm living my best life. I finally feel free and independent. I'm enjoying my single life, doing the things I love, and making my own choices without anyone taking advantage of me. I've had my fill of marriage, and I have no regrets.